Good evening, everybody. This is Laura at Healthy Carnivore. I'm going to go over a little bit of my backstory. Once you watch this video, if there's anything in there you like, please hit the like button. If you find that there might be somebody you should share this with, please share that out. And you can always subscribe, hit the notification bell. Sometimes it'll let you know I go live, sometimes it does not. We do not know how these mysterious things work. So part of my backstory was graduated high school in 89, 240 pounds, listened to my physician who was fairly new out of medical school, went the low fat, chicken protein, like chicken breast, no skin, no fat, fat-free dressings, the whole 9 yards. Ended up later in 91, starting out at 313 pounds. Triglycerides were well over 1,000. Don't know how high. That's as high as their meter went. But my blood work, once they spun it, it went to 1,000 within seconds. So they were like, "Oh, it's pretty bad." So I did not want to become diabetic. I didn't want to have to poke my fingers. He said by the following year, I would be checking my blood sugars 4 times a day and probably bypassing oral medication right to insulin. They didn't have hemoglobin A1C at the time, or they just didn't do it. I don't think they had it out yet. So he prescribed a statin, wrote out a nice little paper script, if any of y'all are old enough to remember those, and kind of sent me on my merry way. And instead of going home, I went to our local library, and for the next several weeks, spent every evening after work and Saturdays up till noon making photocopies, Xerox copies, whatever you wanted to call them, of all the old medical journals and old veterinarian books on medical, everything medical. A lot of the terms that we use today that everybody thinks are fancy were in those books back in 1850. So it's not like they'd come up with anything new. You know, they talked about saturated, monounsaturated, trans fat. I mean, all of that stuff's listed all the way back in 1850. So it's not new nuance words here. So I just kind of read into that, and the more I read, it was like, the more you altered a starch, the closer it became to sugar. So it became very apparent very quickly that I needed to get rid of everything white. I did that. I went home, went to the pantry, cleaned out everything white: potatoes, rice, bread, sugars, everything, pasta, anything that was white, I got rid of. So, and brown sugar, of course, I didn't have that. I did use honey. I did keto before. I think it was called keto. I think Atkins was, of course, he had been out since the 70s. Um, and it wasn't super high fat. I didn't cut off the fat, but I sure didn't add in any extra other than butters. But I did that. And in 9 months, I lost 153 pounds. My triglycerides went down to 33, and I run anywhere from 33 to 68 is as high as I've seen myself be. And that can change from one day to the very next. And so those are transient numbers too, just like all the cholesterol numbers can be night and day, 300 points difference in less than 24 hours, because I've done it myself just to see if that was something that could happen, and it can. So when I went back to see my physician at 9 months, just a week past 9 months, of course, he was very happy with himself of how his statin had saved my life, that I was going to have to take for the rest of my life at 20. And I informed him I did not pick up the script, and I handed him his script back, at which point he kind of set back, and you could see the wind taken out of his sails. His ego was, crumpled up and thrown in the trash bin. And at that point, he informed me that I was going to die a fat ass. To which I said, "I'm going to lose 200 pounds today because you're fired." And I let him know very nicely that shame on him for not knowing how my body worked, that I had to go and dig up the information to know how food, what goes in the body is what the body uses as energy, and you are what you eat. And he still looked at me like I was crazy. And I went over a motor analogy. I had my souped up car there, and I went over the analogy of I have to run turbo blue in this car because I need the highest octane gas for it to run properly to me, that's the same thing as the food that you put in your body is your fuel. You can use the lower grade, mid grade if you want, but you're going to have all these metabolic issues if you do so. And he just looked at me like I was nuts. So he was fired that day. Um, Several years later, after becoming a nurse, I took care of said doctor on the open heart floor where he had had a five-way bypass. So it definitely came full circle. He had been on statins since I think 89. They came out in this one, Lipitor, came out in 87. He had been on that since 89, and this would have been 2000 and maybe seven. So he'd been on them quite a while. Was a type 2 diabetic, which almost everybody ends up being that takes it. Was having memory issues, brain fog, had decreased muscle everywhere, everything. He was just fluffy. He was just fat. He had no muscle tone to him anywhere. Had chronic joint pain and osteoarthritis of every single joint. And he wasn't, I don't think he would have even been, no, I don't think he would have even been 50 yet. Okay. But he was massively huge. I mean, he was way overweight at this point, and he is very tall, like 6'5", 6'6". He's very, very tall, but he was pushing 500 pounds at that point. So I did chew on him a little bit and give some good information, especially that first day because he was still intubated. He was awake, but he couldn't talk back and he couldn't argue. So eventually, I told him exactly what I'd done and went into great detail because at first he didn't remember me until I told him what he said about how I was going to die a fat ass, and that he was like, "Oh, I remember that, yeah." So, anyway, a few years later, he reached out to my mother, who is friends with the doctor next door to his office, and wanted my phone number. And my mother, being ever so smart, said, I don't think so, but I will give her your phone number. So I did reach out to him after a month, and I did purposely wait a month because I used to always have 8 o'clock in the morning appointments, so that I, would get off work late at night. I could, get my appointments done. I could sleep while the kids were at school for a little while and then get up and do it all over again. And he would always show up at like 9:15. I was famous for being there at 9:15, and I was the first patient. So, I mean, it's going to throw your whole day off. But anyway, so I just felt like I sat there and waited on you. You can sit there and wait on me. So when I did end up calling him, he was like, "Well, I feel like I need to change what I'm doing." And I'm like, "Perfect." So he did do keto and he lost well over 250 pounds. I'm not sure. I haven't seen him in quite a few years now as to whether he's maintained that, stayed that. I don't know. I do know that he told me he threw away the statins. He was no longer diabetic. And I did ask him if he was still prescribing them. And he said yes, because the medical system and the standard of care makes him have to prescribe. Not because it's what's right, not because it's helping, not because it's curing anything, but because it's what they have to do. So, which is kind of sad. So that is what led me to, go to the keto. And then in 2019, I'd had about 2 years under my belt of eating the junky keto treats and kind of ruined my gut with all the extra um, sugar alcohols and also the maltodextrins, guar gums, the things like that. Um, the extra fiber that they would put in there really destroyed my stomach. So that's when I went carnivore. I am not saying that carnivore is for every single person out there, but I do say that, like, if you are having any issues still after doing keto or paleo or whatever your lifestyle is, why not try it for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks? And then as you heal, then add back in a food group at a time and see how you feel. And then you stop when you get to the point where, hey, I feel good. I feel my best being lion with the additional eggs once in a while. I don't do eggs every day. Um, but it's all ruminant meat for me. That is when I feel my best. Occasionally, I'll do a bite of like my cabbage, fermented cabbage or fermented pickles, but that's about it as for a way of anything outside of carnivore for myself. That's where I feel my best. So that is just my backstory. So I'm just going to look and see. Free Thinkers here. Hello. Hey, Diamond. Let's see. Oh, T's here. I all just got the call from YouTube meeting Monday. Well, that's good. Sometimes it lets you know that I'm on here and sometimes it does not, and I don't know why. Now, tomorrow night, I will be on with Russ Mitchell on Homesick Buckeye for the Keto Cookout. Potentially, there is going to be another person on there, and we are going to kind of do, if that person can make it, we're going to do discussions on GLP-1 agonist. And so we will be going over that. So we will see how that goes. Hey, Tara, how are you? So anyway, let's start on tonight's talk. I feel like anybody, male or female, this is, something that happens. I just feel like with my business of working with clients online and my patients I take care of in home health, the majority of the people who have this condition I see are females. And granted, we outnumber males in the population, so you're going to see more. But I do think this seems to be something I see a lot of. So this is going to be what they call sarcopenia, and I think I could not I didn't have time. I'll be honest. I did not have time because I made products today. I wanted to see when this jump happened because my guess is there's going to be two correlating factors. I think it's going to be the starting of statins, over 40 years ago. Um, that's just my guess. And the lower protein and lower fat diets, I think they're going to be together. So, sarcopenia is what they call age related loss of muscle mass, strength, and function. So, it is a big, probably the number one driver of falls that I see. So, frailty falls, which means as you get older, you get more frail. Don't have to. It causes a great loss of independence. It is the number one thing, as I was telling my husband the other day, is like I hate to put my mother under the bus here, but I was at her house and she stood up and she was like, "Oh," about fell over. And I was like, "Have you been doing your balance exercises I sent you?" And she goes, "Do I have to do them more than once?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "You can spend 16 hours writing your little political columns and things like that, but you can't spend 20 minutes a day doing balance exercises and you think you could do them once?" I'm like, "Okay." So, what happens with most people after the age of 65, a fall with a fracture, especially to the hip or shoulder or low back, is almost always a death sentence, especially after 65. But even, at 65, you almost never get back to where you were at the point of when you fell. You are going to be deconditioned. You're going to be in a hospital bed. You're going to be in a nursing home bed, a skilled facility bed. You're going to continue to have more loss of muscle. Okay. You are definitely going to lose muscle. And, when you're trying to build back muscle, it's harder to do as you get older. So you are already at a disadvantage. So I say, if you can do something to prevent losing it now, even if it's 10 minutes out of your day of doing something, I think it is extremely important for us at all stages of our life, but especially at the end. The people I see who have done the best when it comes to keeping their muscle are farm wives out in the community that I see. It's the farm wives because they were out there helping in the fields. They were driving the tractor. They were running everybody here, cooking and bringing it out to the field. I mean, they were constantly moving, moving, moving. They seem to do the best. That's just what I've seen in my area. So that may not be the same with everybody. So, when does sarcopenia start? So, with men, it's usually starting to be noticeable in their 40s and 50s, that's dropped. That's dropped 20 years. So, 2 decades. It used to be in the 60s, you'd kind of see them get that bigger belly and the little bitty arms and the skinny little legs. And now we're starting to see that in their 40s. Women, it tends to be a bit slower, but post menopause. So, depending on when you go through menopause, whether you did it because of surgery or just naturally went through menopause, 50s to 60s, it does speed up because of the estrogen loss. And this is where I tell people I am 100% behind people doing bioidentical hormone replacement with a functional, holistic, metabolic doctor that knows what the heck they are doing and does the proper testing at the proper intervals to make sure everything is correct. There is zero, we were lied to, there is zero evidence showing bioidentical hormone replacement therapy causing breast cancer. That was a absolute lie. Go dig up the study and read the entire study and you will see it was a lie. So, I mean, they've never lied to us before. I don't know why we would expect that to be so strange. So, one of the things with your diet, so whether you're keto, carnivore, paleo, whatever you are, I would say you want to prioritize having high quality animal protein. And I'm not going to give you the kilograms that they want you to do, for body weight daily. I'm not going to do that because I don't agree with it. I followed it. I put weight on. I actually lost muscle because I think I had too much gluconeogenesis going on. So I'm going to say you need to go and play with the numbers yourself to figure out what works best for you because every person I work with on my website, it's different. Some people it's 1.6, some people it's 1.2, some people it's 2. I mean, it is night and day difference. I'm very probably on the low end of protein, much higher on the fat. And when I do that, especially beef, the occasional eggs, lamb, deer, elk, bison, antelope, stuff like that, which I've only had twice. I feel my best. And when I do my workouts, I actually retain good muscle. You can see good definitions, stuff like that. So that's what works for me. So I think one of the reasons that that works so well is because these red meats and eggs, fish, things like that, they are rich in leucine. The other thing that you can, if you can tolerate it and you can find a clean version, is whey isolate protein. Because that all of those things have the leucine in it and they stimulate muscle protein synthesis. The other thing, and this is something simple, you don't have to have a bunch of weights, you don't have to go to a gym. You can get resistance bands. Resistance training is, I always say, non-negotiable. It's very easy to do. It takes almost no time. You can just do your own body weight. You can do dead bugs. You can look these up to see what they are. You can do squats, and you start where you are, just a little bit at a time. Walking, farmer carries, rebounder, any of that kind of stuff. Anything you can do, standing up from a sitting position and standing up for like 10 seconds once you've gotten to the standing. From a chair without arms and without using your hands, it's one of the best things you can do for your balance and for the ability of getting up unassisted. You really should be able to sit on the floor and cross-legged and literally be able to get up without using your hands on yourself or on the floor. Um, and that, I mean, that just is showing you whether you're doing correctly for your body. So adequate fat, like I love, supports hormones. So testosterone, estrogen, growth hormones, all of those protect the muscle that we have and will help support making new. You can do creatine, 3 to 5 milligrams daily. I used to take creatine, uh, Mike Myoscience, I think was the brand Myoscience. Mike Mazel, he's a researcher kind of guy. Anyway, and I think his stuff's great, very clean. I'm not saying poo poo, don't do it. It's just that with the way I eat, I don't think I needed it. But I think if I was doing keto or paleo, it's an excellent thing to add in. So there is a lot of evidence that that does help with your strength and with muscle preservation. And you want to preserve what you already have and try to add on. So, of course, we all know my vitamin K2D3, which helps muscle and bone synergy. To have strong muscles, you must have strong bones, and vice versa. Magnesium supports muscle contraction and recovery. I really like magnesium glycinate or L-theanate, omega-3, which is EPA, DHA, which is like I use the cod liver because I don't eat a lot of sardines or tuna. I tried. I can't do it. I did like the cod liver. I did eat 1 can of cod liver, and I was like, "That's pretty good," but I haven't been able to have myself eat any more since then, so I think I told myself they were good, but they're good for you. Collagen, another thing, and you can add some vitamin C because that does help with the tendons. It's not required, but if you've had tendon issues, I did take higher doses of vitamin C during 2020 through 2023. But I did that because I did have an Achilles rupture, not a full rupture. It was three quarters of a rupture. So I did that on purpose. Uh, Note to self, do not pull two deer up a hill one at a time, 20 minutes apart. It was too much for my little Achilles to take. Whey or egg protein isolate, that is something you could add in if you struggle to hit your protein marks, because then you can get that in that way. Then another one is I've had people ask, well, how long will it take for me to see results? And there, I can tell you what, if you did everything as you're supposed to do, you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks, you can actually start seeing some changes, especially if you're doing consistent training. And so we all know I'm a little OCD. I like to do things a certain way. I like to do my sprinting and rebounding and push-ups on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I do functional stretching. I do weightlifting with my arms. I do stretch bands, resistance bands. Excuse me. That might be mostly it. And then I do walks periodically throughout. I do not do 14,000 steps. There are a lot of people out there that do a lot more steps than I do. And I don't know. Some days, I mean, during deer season, I hit 20 some thousand steps every day, even the day that it was like 0 degrees out. Um, so the thing is where you can really see like the visible muscle mass, like, you got the deltoid and you got those nice shoulder caps and stuff like that, or the triceps, you got that nice cut alongside the arm. That can take 3 to 6 months depending on, I mean, how much fat, because how much fat layer you have is going to make a difference. And you can't just lose weight just right here or just here. It's overall. Okay. You can build muscle in spot areas, yes. So functional improvements, which is to me way more important than it is to have like bigger biceps or tricep, is going to be balance and energy. Balance, balance, balance. I want people to have better balance so that they're not falling down, breaking bones, ending up in the hospital, ending up in the medical system. My job is to try to keep people from getting into that system to begin with. So, some of these balance things you can literally see within the first week. And I will tell you, my mother started doing those balance exercises every day since last Tuesday. And she has said that she's not having to use her cane when she's walking around inside her house now. So that's been what, not even 7 days yet, 6 days. So, I mean, it doesn't take very long once you start making it a habit. Like my husband has a habit, he gets up and he has to have coffee first thing in the morning. That's a habit, and that's okay. Well, my habit is I have to get up and I have to move my body and do something. And some people work out or have better energy of doing stuff in the afternoon. Not me. My cortisol is spent by 5 p.m. So after 5 p.m., I'm not going to be putting enough into it to get anything out of it. So when you're eating high protein, keto, carnivore, paleo, where you're making sure you're getting enough protein and fat, you have a huge advantage because all of those nutrients that you need to help build and sustain the muscles that you have, like the bioavailable protein and fat, you already are doing that. It's more for people, especially who are coming from the standard American diet or a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet, where it's very low bioavailable protein. Sorry to say it, it just is. So adding the resistance, adding creatine, adding, collagen can help. And if nothing else, protect yourself so you don't end up with falls. That's my main thing is I just don't want to see people falling down, hurting themselves. So that is tonight's talk. I did see some things in here, so I'm going to check out and see if we had any questions. Hey, Keto Rockstars, hello. Free Thinker. And it says question from Keto Rockstars, Laura. What if estrogen positive breast cancer runs rampant in your family? Sisters, cousins, grandma all had estrogen breast cancer. No doctor will tell me 100% it will not increase my already high. Yeah, you have high probability. Um, First, I would ask if you have been tested. So I'm not sure if that's HR2. I'm not sure which one. If you have the BRs, the BRCA gene. In your family, I would look at that. But every study, the studies that they used back when they said that these, and those were not bioidentical hormones, those were man-made hormones from the pharmacy that they utilized for them as well. But there was not a higher prevalence of breast cancer in that. Now, with you already having that, I don't know, but you before you go through menopause had that higher estrogen level and you didn't develop breast cancer. So I think bioidentical hormones would be different. That would be something that if I were you, I would reach out to like a Thomas Seyfried. He does answer back when people email him, and I don't have his email, but I do know that people do get answers back by him um, as to what he sees on that. And then you have to weigh your benefits versus your risk. Um, very low, too low of estrogen is, heart, your muscle, your bones, your brain, your memory. Um, all of those things are going to be severely affected over time. Um, so you just have to decide whether it's something you're willing to take that risk for. And I would I'd keep asking doctors. Yeah. Does low estrogen affect? Yes. Yes, it does. Um, yep. So T is asking if low estrogen affects female DHEA. Yes, it does. Um, and there are some things. I mean, there are some clean supplements that you can take. I'm trying to think. I don't use it, but I had gotten it to study. I have a DHA. I think it was the Now brand, but I don't see it in my little container of stuff here. That was the DHEA. I'm trying to think there's a precursor that you can take too. I can't remember it off the top of my head to help with that. But omega-3 fatty acids really, really kind of help with that too. Higher fat will also help with that. So that is what I am doing. Let's see, free thinker. Da, da, da. Laura, I am a 68-year-old female, so this topic was really relevant for me. Thank you. You are definitely welcome. Um, I just really think that us trying to keep ourselves as healthy and as non-dependent on others. And it's not that I'm not like I'm mad if somebody needs me to help them do anything. That's not it. I love to help people, but if you can stay where you can do the majority of your own stuff, that means you get to stay in your homes. My whole thing is I want somebody to stay in their home as long as they want to be there. If they want to be there till their last breath, then that's what I want for them. I don't want them to have to go to a facility. And it's not that there aren't some good facilities out there, and there are some great people that work at every one of these facilities, but there's also not so great people that work at those facilities. And if you've ever been in one of them, even just as a visitor, I think you probably picked up on that. So my whole thing is if I can avoid that, that's what I want to try to do. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. Let's see. Yeah, Um, Amy, I would just check and see if you can figure out how to get a hold of Thomas Seyfried. Um, Another one would be Ben Bickman. He is a medical researcher and biologist. Another one would be to reach out to like a Gary Brecka to 10X. And he does do questions on his podcast quite often and will answer them. And that might be another thing to put out there with the number of people. But I definitely would be getting checked to see if I carried that mutation. A lot of times our genes don't do that, but sometimes they do. And so I would definitely check that because boy, that yeah, and this is the funny thing. So I did bioidentical hormones for a short time, and as I upped my fat, I was able to completely get off of them. I did pellets, so they put the little pellets underneath in the muscle of your buttocks, and I did estrogen and testosterone. I used to always carry I was a higher testosterone carrier, even younger until menopause. And so I did both of those. And now I don't do that. But if I needed it, I'm not against it. But I also don't have, well, yes, I did have breast cancer, but it was not, anyway, it was 30 some years ago and almost, yeah, 34 years ago, 33 years ago. Anyway, and I've had nothing from since then. So I wasn't concerned about that. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful. I'm going to go over next week's talk. So next Monday's talk is going to be glucose versus ketones for energy and how the body uses glucose for energy and how it uses ketones for energy. So I'm going to go over that. I love that. This is the nerdy part of me that likes like, I love talking about ATP and the Krebs cycle. I won't go too much into that. I will probably discuss a little bit of the ATP. I'll try to stay away from the Krebs cycle. When you start talking Krebs cycle, people kind of get that glazed over look. So, let's see. Does low estrogen? Yeah. I answered that one. Okay. Hey, Thomas. And okay, that's okay, Thomas. And don't forget, I think we do our thing on the 27th. I think I've got it on the calendar. So I'm excited. You're going to have to ask me some hard questions, okay? So anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm drinking Coco Loco, which is from Salty brand. It's electrolytes and I make it like a hot chocolate. So that's what I'm doing. Perfect. I thought so. I was trying to do that from memory that I would be on your channel on the 27th. So looking forward to it and try to get any questions. I love questions. So yeah, let's see. T. Lewis, I agree. Perfect. All right. I will definitely check with you guys later. So as I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat. See ya.